Hey, so what's up everyone? So today I'm going to be doing a basic tutorial around just some tips and tricks that you can use, very subtle tips and tricks that you can use as a beginner as you're learning to use things like Canva or just graphic design in general. I want to do this with Canva because a lot of people have Canva and not a lot of people have like Adobe products. I typically use Adobe products for most of my graphic design or even video editing or animated type of work. But a lot of people use Canva. And so I actually have one of my versions of Canva up. I have the free version, which most people would probably have, versus the paid pro one, where you can actually use, a paid version, get more tools and more things, etc. So a lot of times people think they can't really do a great job with Canva to make it look, amazing. And it's like, I just use Canva. But like, no, there's a lot of features, a lot of different things you can do that can kind of help to bring your graphic, your design, your flyer, your post, whatever it is you're working on, just make it pop or bring it to life. So like I said, this is just for beginners. So I'm going to give 5 beginner tips that can help you to just make little tweaks to your designs that will take your design from being okay to being, you know what, that looks great. All right, so I'm gonna go here and just open up a blank canvas. All right, so the first one is your fonts. Your fonts can actually make or break your design. And sometimes with fonts, it's easy to just pick something like, a lot of people will see a font that's like, cursive, for example, and just get put a whole lot of cursive fonts on their post or their design, and people can't really read it, and people won't spend the extra time straining or trying to figure out words. They'll just scroll right past, or they won't pay it any attention. Just as well as like if they make the fonts too small, etc., or it has too much information on it, and just being able to pick the right fonts. Because more importantly about whatever graphic you're choosing is you want people to be able to read it more so than, oh, it just looks aesthetically great. But if they can't read it and the aesthetics are nice, it doesn't matter. So the first thing we want to do is just change the background real quick to black. If you know me, black is the go-to color. So let's just look at some fonts. So when doing like graphics and things like that, I always like to use something to kind of, catch people's attention off top. So I always try to use maybe some text that's a little bit bolder in my designs, when I do design work. So that way, it can, whatever the purpose is, it captures your eye, right? So let's just make up a title. We're talking about Canva graphics. All right, so this is a pretty good font, legible, easy to read, but I actually think I want something a little bit different. So let's look at our fonts, see what we have here, find something nice, see what that look like. Yeah, that's pretty good and bold. I think we can work with that. So now one of the things that I think is really good that you can do with your font is you can actually work with the spacing, right? So the letter spacing, right? Sometimes people, they try to, spread it out too much. Now, depending on the design or what it is that the look that you're going for, spreading your letters out like this, it looks great, but it doesn't apply for every design. Sometimes when you do that, it looks out of place. Or you can kind of keep it where it is, like at 0, or you can even get negative, where the spacing is a little negative, meaning it just brings things in closer. And when it's like that, now you can actually increase the size of your words or whatnot, and make it even bigger and bolder. And so it just depends on the actual graphic or what you're trying to do. All right, so the second thing is your actual text. So when you're working on different designs, you want to think about the words you have or the words you're using to put on a graphic. So here we have Canva, but we want to maybe put, do a little bit more. So let's say Canva graphics. So let's say Canva graphics, and I'm just going to duplicate this. And if you are on a Mac like I am, then it's just holding down the Option button. All right, so Canva graphics, right? I also like to work on the spacing in between, right? But with Canva graphics, aesthetically, things line up pretty good because I have everything centered. So those are things you want to consider. Your text, your phrases, how things position, how things line up. Because it's nothing like having like those awkward phrases or something, things don't line up like you want it to be. So let's say if I want to say Canva, tips and tricks, right? Tips and tricks. Oops, let's take all this off. So tips and tricks. Well, you see there, that's a little longer than what I would care to have it. So with things like this, then you are able to now like play with, just different sizings and things like that. And we'll talk about that a little later. So number 3, your spacing. Spacing and margins are important, right? So let's start with spacing. So with spacing, like I don't like my words to have too many gaps, especially if they're, if it's a phrase or a title. I like to close the gaps a lot of times. And just like you saw me, playing with the spacing with the letters and things like that, that's also something that you want to consider and think about. Because spacing, sometimes people, they'll do something and, you'll see the spacing where the words all the way to the end, and, or you have an image and the words are too close, or it's not positioned in a way where it looks like it's, a graphical design. It's just, you just didn't look at the spacing. So always look at your spacing and look at your margin. All right, so number 4, little subtle changes, little things to make your graphics, just fit like you want it to. Little subtle changes can do a lot. So you see here, this seems awkward. Canva tips and tricks, just the way it's positioned. Now, is it bad? No, but can it be better? Yes. And sometimes it's just as simple as doing something like coming here and replacing this with a symbol, right? So you can put an and symbol that helps to shrink it down, for example. So one of the things you also can do is play with different sizes, right? So Canva tips and tricks. So let's delete this. Let's leave a little space. Let's duplicate this. Let's say and, but let's shrink and down. I'll need a little bit more space. Can you rotate? Wrong thing. Come over here, rotate to 90 degrees. See how that looks. Shrink it down a little more. Fix the spacing. Now, if you're trying to grab this and you can't seem to grab it, it's real easy. You can toggle, but they have a position up here. Come here, and then you can just arrow over how you want it to be. All right, so is it perfect? No, but I think you get the idea. So now the 5th thing you can think about that is very subtle as well, but things that you can do to help change the tone and dimension of your design is now playing around with different colors. So let's say I see here we have tips and tricks, and maybe I want to highlight and maybe change the color of and to something that pops out. So we have all colors of kind of here, and one of the things I think y'all should always do is at least just look at how things look, play around with it. It's fine. So we have Canva tips and tricks, right? And just adding a little color changes the dimension of your drawing just a little bit, but just enough as well to where you start to get a little creativity, put into whatever it is you're trying to do. Now let's add some other text in just to show you a little bit more about subtle changes, colors, text, font, etc. All right, so I'm going to duplicate this because I'm lazy and I do not want to just hit text. So let's say Canva tips and tricks. So let's say Canva tips and tricks for beginners. Is that how you spell beginners? That's not how you spell beginners. Let's say on YouTube. So now we want to just change this, make it smaller, and maybe change a lighter font. I'm not excited about it, but okay, cool. But now here, what I want to do is just space these letters out a little bit because they're condensed, right? Because they have the same properties as this. So now I just want to change it. All right. So I can also change some of the words, change the color, use that same yellow. So that works, right? But then let's say if I want to add something else to it, you can add little elements that helps add even more dimensions. So let's say if we want to add like a little background to the words, go to elements, and as soon as I see a shape, I'm going to take one of the shapes. Booyah! Put it to size. But that color, don't know if we want to have orange. Let's see if we can make this yellow. Change the text color. Let me change that to black. And then you just change it up again. Little things. With some of these fonts, you can actually, play around with the weight of it, the depth. Then let's just add another little subtle touch. Add a stroke, which is a button right here. Stroke color to be noticeable. And let's say white. All right, cool. Now I'm not too high about this yellow, it's a little bright, so let me make it a little darker. Yeah, just a little darker, so it's not too fluorescent. You can see where it goes from being basic to having some dimensions and a little bit of creativity in the graphic, even though it's only words. All right, everyone, I hope this has been helpful to just help you to enhance your graphics just a little bit. Have a great one. Peace.